he tilts his monitor 45 degrees away from him when he plays.
I love that poster.
Yeah, I love to put his Wikipedia results in the background, like he needs any introduction. So, yeah, Humpin's setup is pretty bizarre. There's Landon for you, of course.
Do you think he tried to log in to delete the Paris Eternals?
Oh my God, he was on that team.
Yeah.
That is great. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, Paris Eternals. I mean, hey, they had a stage win. You know, they had a.
That's it. They did.
Wow, that is. I had scrubbed that from my memory. I'm going to be honest with you. So, Lijiang Tower, obviously, you know, this is the kind of map where we can have some wins, right? We're seeing it in sort of night market, but again, you know, if you're a Qadsiah, it might be even considering, you know, Tread's hero pool in the past is definitely, I have felt we've seen a bit more Winston from them, right? Whereas Ziad was the diva option on this team.
And this crowd is no joke there.
Dude,
I mean, Hangzhou.
did you see the AR intro?
Did I see it? I was sat next to you. Yes, I did see it. I mean, that was crazy.
So I thought you were looking at your prize picks. I wasn't sure.
No. I was paying attention. That was crazy. And I mean, I always think, you know, we really never, with Overwatch League, ended up getting like a live event international in China. So it was probably back even, but like the Overwatch
we had a homestand.
One.
We had a homestand in China.
We won, I think, one. So,
and it was awesome.
But like a major international, like a final or anything like that, I mean, it was really Overwatch 1 days that happened.
Last time I was there was for APAC Premier in 2017.
But the one thing though, like when you think about like Overwatch World Cup, like the Chinese fans always show up in abundance. They've always been so passionate about their team. So okay, so the initial ban will be Sim here from Falcons. Now Qadsiah on the other side, you'll get rid of the Juno. So eliminating Juno from the mix. Orbital Ray. It's just such a strong ultimate, so it feels like never a wrong option.
Without having had a chance to look into the scrims as much, because obviously teams been boot camping in Korea, they've all been happening on the Asia server. Sometimes you might see like a ban like this in order to protect a certain DPS, but we've seen Sim on Night Market especially, right? She can obviously get you into play pretty quickly and strong in those front lines that do want to make use of shields.
But in theory though, the Sim is like really good in combination with more of like a brawly style tank with like a Maga.
And we've seen Torb Sim comps not so long ago.
Yeah,
that was mixed about a bit.
That's true, but it could be also like a DPS protective ban, right? You get that initial ban, you can remove Symmetra from the pool. That doesn't allow Qadsiah to kind of go into that, so they're forced to go into the support pool. So
Juno is an interesting follow-up ban, I think. Obviously, you'll see her get mixed in here and there. She, you know, really shines in comps that want to make good use of, you know, being clumped up together inside that orbital ray. So it might imply they're trying to avoid going into against a brawl style here. The Sim also works in those comps, so both teams may be angling to eliminate one particular style here.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see them probably swapped out for Lucio, though, rather, I mean, you pretty much say that with confidence, right? Like, Lucio seems to be a must pick in terms of the speed when the Juno's not in the game, right? Juno obviously can't create the same speed as Lucio, but still just having the utility that Juno has on top of the speed is really beneficial. So I expect to see some Lucio play here early on from both sides.
Moments away from kicking off our Champions Clash here, folks. Jumping into Lijiang Tower. It's going to be Control Center to start us off here. #1 seed from Asia, Falcons, current champions of the region, versus the perennial dark horse, Qadsiah, now in a 1-2.
And you thought he was gone.
Oh boy.
Stories about his demise may have been too early.
Exaggerated.
Yeah.
It's Malgan time, folks. And of course, Lucio Kiriko compositions here. Mirror match now. We're going to have proper on the Genji versus Checkmate.
So now you actually think that the Sim ban is actually not much of a protect. Like, it actually could have been a legit ban for that Sim.
Oh, not a great start for Tread there. He is blown to smithereens in the front line. And proper has already made his way through Qadsiah, leaving nothing but blood in his wake. That was 5K. Just casual rundown. Okay, buddy.
Just making it look so easy there.
How does that feel?
Proper.
Just touch down at Hangzhou and get a 5K to start off?
I mean, look, in games like this, it's pretty simple for Proper to be able to do so, right? It's just when Falcons gets up against like Crazy Raccoon, right? Like, you're not going to see the same type of result.
Man, I would have loved if Proper gave me a chance to warm up into that instead of just throwing it out straight away. But hey, luckily, plenty more of those than they came from. Here come the stomps now. Tread a little bit low, and again, it's so important to keep that Malga healthy in the front line. Harmon, though, is chilling. Chiyo does get picked off, though, by a railgun, but Tread is down. So frontline advantage here for Falcons, and you know they can snowball an advantage like this. Qadsiah, sadly, feel a little bit outmatched outside of the opportunities that Labda has been looking to open up on this Soj.
Well, this is interesting because this is a composition that, like, EU would typically want to play, right? Like, a composition like this. But I also feel like this is okay for Falcons. Like, this is something they totally want to play as well. As Qadsiah, they'll move in, get control of the point here. It will flip, but Falcons just more of a regroup scenario, right? They're going to be able to come back with double support ult here and flip this rather easily.
Couple big picks from Labdic. Puts out Qadsiah in this position now. They've got to capitalize. Kitsune Rush to start the fight off. Railgun at the ready. And in goes proper. Blade in hand, but absolutely no need to make use of it. The Kitsune Rush for Falcons is well utilized, but they also commit a beat to that fight.
They ended up stacking support ults. They ended up using their like Kitsune rushes basically at the same time. And then Shio obviously further ahead than Haku in terms of getting towards that sound barrier. So he has the luxury being able to drop that. But now for Falcons, you don't have any support ult to deal with this checkmate Blade on the other side. So potentially you're looking at like Stalker, right? Can you get a big overclock going, maybe chunk some of that sound barrier off, and then able to kind of deal with that Genji.
You have to wait this sound barrier out though if you're Falcons, so you need to be ready to disengage, but there's no opportunity for that. And that is a huge pick without needing to make use of the sound barrier. Labda, of course, takes the perk that gives him 150 charge off the rail, so easy enough to get those insta-kills. Falcons have to disengage, and Haku still commits the sound barrier here. Falcons have done enough to draw it out because they used both their DPS ultimates.
Yeah, they played an overclock, and that forces the sound barrier out. And this is actually great for Falcons, right? Because you can re-engage. You know exactly where you're at in terms of support ultimates, and you can cage fight the Blade Bell. It's gonna be checkmate going down.
And the Falcons disengage off this fight. They drag it out. Now Harbin comes in with that cage fight, and there's nowhere for Haku to go. Labda would land and get involved in some of this fighting, but Falcons have both supports alive at the end of the fight, which means Harbin was never going to go down. And that was the ace up the sleeve for Qadsiah, that sound barrier that Haku had to make use of. Now, honestly, checkmate has to go in with the rawest of raw blades and hope that the Kitsune Rush doesn't cause him to get bowled over.
You're going to have cage fight plus blade, right? That was a pretty popular combo that Qadsiah can potentially utilize, but you can create so much distance here between the two teams, right? Falcons would control the point. You just need to keep it contested.
Landon goes down at the start of the fight, though. Chio, ever the aggressor, is able to pick him off, and this has gone disastrously for Qadsiah. Trent at least is able to get a cage fight in play, but only Harbin was in there, and frankly, Falcons don't need him to finish the job. Classy work for Proper, a second deflect kill for the round, and it has to seal the deal, especially with Chio coming into his own sound barrier. Qadsiah are out of options.
But did you see how far checkmate needed to go with that blade to try and access that support line? It'll be Stalker finishing this one off. This will be a point here for Falcons early on. Labda gets one with a railgun shot, trying to make it interesting here towards the end, but that sound barrier should be enough, where checkmate ends up using that blade, has to go basically all the way down the hallway by the mega health pack, gets boot back, and then now you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, right? The Maga and the DPS are on the opposite side. You have no chance of kind of going after the support line as well, where you can just create so much distance being able to control that point.
But I mean, Qadsiah, in theory, can wait for Falcons to take some space in the middle part of the map and give checkmate an easier killing field. But because Falcons are disengaged, and Qadsiah felt the need to chase them with that sound barrier, they don't have a good setup for checkmate. You're right, he has to play. He basically needs a Sherpa to access the backline.
And we'll see potentially a Torb.
Lightweight!
Torb has been pretty popular. I would say more popular this year than I feel like at any point throughout Torb's esports career.
Perks, bro.
Yeah.
Perks have made a big difference. Obviously, Torb, sneaky, getting these sneaky stealth buffs every now and then.
I also think Falcons is probably pretty happy not seeing the Genji on the other side. Like, Proper's Genji is so disruptive that this is probably a better game here for Qadsiah.
Crazy Raccoon banned Stalker's Farah on this map when they played in those Asia finals. They did not want to see it. Qadsiah maybe not ready for it, but it is going to be a little bit scary to deal with, especially that you can remove checkmate's turrets from play, but if Labda keeps shooting like this, it might not be an issue.
He's continued his strong Sojourn play, right? I mean, you lose that first round, but still putting up a pretty good fight on that Sojourn and gets a first pick off here, so that's going to allow Qadsiah to get control.
I feel like this comp looks honestly really good though for Falcons. It feels like everybody's in one of their best positions. Proper back on the Tracer, Hanbin on the Diva as well. Labda has to respect there as he tries to play by the bridge, but is wary of the concussive blast, knocking him off. Still will play from the outside, and Falcons actually can get a flip going on virtue of being grouped up and forcing Qadsiah off.
I would agree that obviously Falcons is on a lot of like comfort picks amongst all of their players, but I think that just pace of this game is much more comfortable for Qadsiah. I don't think it favors them entirely, but I would say they're probably much better playing this style than they were in the first round.
Harvey was hoping to pick up a Mega on the way back there, but it just wasn't spawned and available. He still needs to try and contest the point, and that means he has to serve up his Diva Mech, I guess, as a burn offering. Checkmate here is definitely going to start to be an issue. Of course, he's taken the perk that empowers him during his overload, so definitely pretty brutal in the brawl fight. And Falcons, they kind of want a long fight. They want Stalker to soften people up, proper to go in and finish them now, switching to the Genji.
I think this is obviously a better look here for Falcons because the Genji was giving a lot of problems to the Qadsiah backline. I think just put pressure on Landon and Haku to be able to keep each other up. Be a Kitsune rush here for Falcons, kicking things off. It'll be Haku with a beat in response.
Stalker under pressure, but he's able to get away from... Oh my goodness, yep, he's on the move, buddy. The perk that allows him to move while in barrage is a powerful one indeed. And Labda and Checkmate get flattened.
And it just feels like with the Genji in combination with the Pharah, you're just way more all in, right? You can just go hyper aggressive with that Pharah, putting down damage from above with the Genji and the D.Va combination, and just speeding up the process for Qadsiah. I think that's where you force them to start making mistakes, and when you can get an advantage.
Labda's overclock though is active and has already claimed one. Stalker falls into the backline, goes proper. He's looking for the Soj, gets the damage, but it falls as a result. Checkmate though sent careening off the map, and this is good for Falcons. This is positive tempo for the blue side team in control of the point. Harbin just backs away and will allow Tread to get a remake, but there's not a lot else to work with for Qadsiah. They just have to regroup.
Yeah, and it's Team Falcons actually going in behind Shio's sound barrier, right? The sound barrier over on the bridge into the overclock that comes in from Labda, and you just push directly on into it.
See, that is land deflex, bro. I mean, you can't do that online. That is ridiculous. That's 3 deflect kills for Proper over the course of this game so far. Now Qadsiah are in trouble. And I think Kitsune Rush is all they've got to lean on this fight.
But if you're Falcons, you play close, right? Checkmate's going to switch here over to Genji. Falcons, you play close. You have an opportunity to use this blade basically in their spawn, and you get Labda early.
That's the Stalker difference now. He's really starting to cause problems for Qadsiah. Proper's going to go with the blade now, and nobody's there to protect the rest of them. Harbin's on the follow-up and catches Haku with consummate ease. Now Tread's looking for Stalker, but again, he just repositions, gets back in a decent spot to fight, and Harbin has a remake available, so that's 2 D.Va's worth of HP that he has to work with. Tread, however, can't boast the same. Knocked out of the mech, now can't really have an impact on the fight, and he is eventually removed. Kitsune Rush here now used by Fielder. Harbin still with a remake available, and now it's just the dregs of Qadsiah to be cleaned off. Strong showing here for Falcons, and you've got to respect the Pharah.
And it's going to be a Falcons map number 1 win in a pretty commanding fashion. Qadsiah had their moments, but there was never a part of the game where you felt like it was going to slip from Falcons' control. And I think if you're Qadsiah, there's probably like 4 or 5 things you want to ban going into the next map. You only have one choice to go with. It's going to be very difficult to get this next map.
I mean, out of the gates, you're in Amalgam era, right? So already you have to worry about a couple of things. How can we trade damage effectively without putting Amalgam in a position where they have to turn their back and run? If you ever have to use, that charge defensively and expose yourself and you get too low in those frontline trades, you're already at a distinct disadvantage. And we saw that happen in that first fight. Labda for me is a bright spot for Qadsiah.
Yeah, I would say he played pretty good. I mean, as good as you can play with the amount of pressure and everything kind of going on positively for Falcons, and then Qadsiah kind of falling apart a little bit.
Just got a 5K in the first fight. Proper, I mean, what more?
It's got to be so defeating.
I mean, again, it's like, I mean, it probably, if you're going up against Proper, it's like, yes, the legends are true. You know what I mean? It's not surprising to you if you're on the receiving end, I feel.
But this is what we were talking about a little bit in the pregame with Qadsiah, where, like, great, you overachieved, I would say, in EMEA, right? Coming out and qualifying for Hangzhou and Champions Clash here. But what do you have at the international level, right? I think this is like a great, obviously, test for this team, especially playing Falcons early on, right? Like, where are we as a team? And, like, where is the potential for this team, right? I still think there's a lot of room for them to grow.
Well, you're playing against an opponent now who doesn't make unforced errors. You've got to put Falcons under such a degree of pressure where they start to make those mistakes and then you can capitalize on them. They don't just get served up to you for free. You've got to make your own luck, and that's why you have a Sojourn player like Labda who can, just off his own back, fire up an overclock and pick someone like Chio off at the start of the fight. That, for me, is where the openings were for Qadsiah, but look, I mean, even the disengagement from Falcons, when they go down a player, 2 players, they do so they're always negotiating from a position of power on these maps.
It never feels like they're truly out of a fight. Like, it always feels like, regardless of what happens, they have a chance to potentially...
Unreal Glaze session, by the way, but it was a great showing.
I mean, it's a deserved Glaze session, I would say, as Falcons looked extremely strong. Where would you want to see Qadsiah go to? Yeah, Circuit.
Although, it is Hanbin. And maybe you're playing against the team that, like, if Smurf was on this roster and still in, maybe you
there are a lot of teams who actually play, like, would rather go Suravasa than any of the other.
Yeah, we always see
hybrids.
that control into Suravasa sort of. I mean, it speaks highly.
This is the NA special.
It is the NA special.
Control Suravasa Esperanza.
little 1, 2, 3. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, look, I mean, some of your options here, if you're a team that like wants to play their brawl style and likes to involve Farah in your compositions, Runasapi is a great map for the Farah. You have the open sight lines and you can play from just, around the building corners and be pretty punishing there. In the past, we've seen teams struggle to sort of, punish those Farah setups where she can actually play safely out of hit scan sight lines. But I think if you're Qadsiah here, Tread staying in, you got to ask yourself, what comps are we trying to play? Are we a Malga team? Are we trying to sort of force that, or was it just that one round? He's obviously not quite as robust on a map that has environmental kill potential like Garden, but, you could take Circuit, but Harbin is like an incredible Sigma player. Obviously off-tank, aficionado.
You just play something like Junkertown, just kind of like throw like or Route 66, right? Throw something like that into the mix. Like, I mean,
I think the strategy for a lot of these teams is against Falcons is probably still going to be trying to create situations where dive has to be played.
Well, they get first ban too, right? So could you play a map that is like a Route 66 and ban D.Va and try and force them to play Winston, right? Like, if you feel like that's
I don't think that's a bad idea. Yeah.
I mean, look, you're just picking the best of probably the worst options here, but like if that's your expected path, that would be one way to go.
I know it's odd. We're talking about Winston. We've not seen any of it yet, so I understand why people might be a little bit quizzical about this. This is a little bit of what's emerging from like the scrim scenario over there, as a lot of teams obviously will.
Suravasa. All right, maybe we got a little bit of the NA special on our hands here.
I mean, we're looking at a map here where like Malga comps are very reasonable to play. We've like seen a lot of Torb Sim comps in those maps. We've seen Hazard comps in the past, right? You can play the Orisa style sort of brawl. What I want to see, if I'm an Qadsiah fan, hypothetically, is them try and pick a composition they think that can actually beat like Falcons' best.
Would you ban Malga? I mean, you could ban like if you don't feel as confident, right? Suravasa, we've seen a decent amount of Malga played throughout it.
I mean, Qadsiah, they ban Juno and still play Malga, right?
Yeah.
So, and you'll notice obviously like the Kirikos in those situations are taking the perk that gives them extra like healing against targets that have like critical health, right? So they're like focused on not brawling so much, but trying to get that healing up, because it could be an issue sometimes in the Kiriko Lucio comps, that raw throughput. But I just thought it was a bit odd that they sort of banned the Juno and still end up sort of going for that style. So that's an option. For sure. I think there are quite a number of maps where, outside of these...
So the first ban is Qadsiah.
Okay.
They get rid of Genji, which I was talking about in that second round where Proper was playing Tracer at the start. I was like, you'd much rather see that than the Genji. The Genji gave them a lot of problems early on. Getting rid of Genji's also a really good combination with Malga, right? But then also, on the other side, Falcons, they're the ones that get rid of Malga, right? So it seems like Falcons, they're okay playing, whether it be D.Va or something else.
And I wouldn't be surprised, right? Seeing them, like play D.Va comp on this map would be very reasonable. We've seen teams also try and play like the dive style setups here as well, quite often. It can definitely find you some value. So a lot of options here on Suravasa. But again, when you think about that first point, right, you think about that first engagement, trying to control that high ground with your DPS is really important. I think Sojourn's going to be pretty ubiquitous throughout the course of this tournament, as she has been, over the last few months of play.
Just an unbelievable hero, right? I mean, can provide so much, like, has insane, like, escapability, right? Like, we saw Labda there playing with the double dash, right? Able to just kind of get out of harm's way rather easily. So, Qadsiah, huge hill to climb here. I guess benefit for Qadsiah is this is one of the shorter series, so you win this, you give yourself a coin flip here in our final map.
And this is what happened. Like, you're aware of this, by the way, when you're playing in your regional finals and you know that you're getting a second seed, you know there's a really good chance that you're going up against one of the top seeds from, either China or from South Korea. So, from that, OWCS Asia scene. So you're going to be up against it pretty much straight from the outset. But also, you're probably going to have to play a team like this, like second if not first, right? Like if you win your first game,
play them anyway.
If you get an easy matchup in your first game, you're going to have to play in a best of 5.
There is no cakewalk to a final here, right?
And Qadsiah know that because they've spent their fair share of time in the lower bracket over in EMEA. They know what it's like to fight out of that. Up to Suravasa we go. So Harbin is going to be on the Winston. I was talking about this a little bit more. You'd be surprised to see that, I guess, knowing what Harbin's preference in the past has been. But the word on the street is that the top Winston comps for the top teams are still beating the D.Va style.
Yeah.
It's still the better option. But Qadsiah have also picked up the Torb here. So checkmate on Torb's an odd look, but it does give them a bit more of a robust response to these dive setups.
The Torp's pretty nasty against that Winston up close, right? Can just kind of like shred through some of that damage. You see Hanbin has to be like so careful, especially because D.Va's really good at taking those duels as an offensive threat and then the chase downs.
I like that a lot against the Pharah. You really want to try and control, like Proper, obviously, who's on the Pharah here instead of a Stalker. And yeah, like it's going to make Team Falcons wonder, like, yeah, if we can actually get away with the Pharah. Switching over to the Tracer now is Proper.
I was going to say, that's probably why you also have him on the Pharah, because you're going to switch off of it.
It's not amazing against the Torb, right? You normally would go Genji, I think, against this, but that's been banned. So this is not a perfect option, and Proper will have to play while being pretty aware of the turret as a nuisance.
I really like the Genji ban here for Qadsiah. We talked a little bit about it pre-game, and we saw how dominant Proper was in map number 1, where, at least so far, seems to be pretty impactful as trying to build up here towards a Royale gunshot, just trying to fire it across. But it's going to be difficult to kind of dive into this Torb D.Va setup on the opposite side.
So, folks, put it in the back of your mind. The D.Va Torb look forces Falcons onto a D.Va of their own, forces the Tracer switch. So Falcons are the ones that have to fit the mold a little bit here, and so far it's been a struggle. Hanbin's been desuited. They're still going to come into the fight here with the Qadsiah rush, so Hanbin's hoping to charge that Bunny Blaster up as quickly as he can to get back into the action. And Hanbin wasn't in mech when he killed Checkmate. He legitimately just killed that guy with the blaster. Okay, man.
The fight is never truly over with Falcons, as regardless of the scenario, that time both teams end up dropping their Qadsiah rush. Hey, you still got Proper alive on Tracer, you've got a chance.
I'm not seeing things, right?
No.
I guess the Qadsiah rush fire rate increase on the Bunny Blast is really hitting different.
High value there. It's Qadsiah, though. Obviously,
is that worse than a hammer kill?
No. Qadsiah, they just need one fight here, though, man. I mean, they're going to have probably like 2 cracks at in Lab, still continuing this hard start. I mean, the Shield's got the sound barrier. This is a huge advantage.
There's massive, man. That massive ultimate off the table. And Qadsiah hero at 99%. They're just going to finish the job. And Lab has been dishing it out. Dude. 3 kills. This guy, born for the stage, apparently. A verifiable land dragon. Comes out and dismantles Team Falcon for the first flashpoint.
And watching him play Sojourn, it seems like it was a waste of the talent. Just blocking it far, just running it down. He has had a great series thus far, has an overclock, gets that early pick onto Chio. No opportunity for the sound barrier to be matched for Falcons, and that's an easy fight win and point take for Qadsiah.
Yeah, great opening here. Chio's already gone ahead and tried to clear that Torb turret out of the way, but you are going to be running into a wall here for Qadsiah. Sound barrier here for Chio was an enforced savings plan for that ultimate after that previous fight. Now we'll have that available with Hanbin having a mech refresh opportunity. It's going to be Lapta that wants to push up here with his overclock. Big damage already going to get put onto the front line of Falcons, but they have a sound barrier to stave much of it off. Proper there just has to pick away at the Torb turret, but Lapta finally gets onto Fielder. It's going to be a trade though, and Stalker deals with his opposite number. Hanbin going for a self-destruct. Okay, bro, come on. Kills Checkmate with a Bunny Blaster, then does it with a self-destruct of all things, gets his mech back. Absolute mayor of Value Town is Hanbin here, and Falcons are able to take this first fight.
And with the sound barrier early, I actually like the way that Qadsiah played it, right? They used the Twirbolt and the self-destruct to kind of mitigate some of the aggression that was going to come through from Falcons, but Falcons just ends up winning it in the end. Checkmate will make the change over to the Sim. So Sim, if you can keep this Sim alive, that's always been the thing with Sim. Really glass cannon hero. If you can keep this Sim alive and ramp up against the D.Va, D.Va has no way to mitigate the damage of that Sim beam, right? So you become quite devastating.
I think Checkmate got isolated briefly. He was using the TP to get away there, but he's able to get back to safety. Haku, though, not nearly as lucky. Harmon's able to bring them down, and Proper with his first pulse bomb kill of the tournament, of many, I'm sure, does get rid of Checkmate. The switch over towards the Sim seems all dangerous here for Qadsiah, but Tread and Lab just standing up in the absence of their teammates as Hanbin tries to lock it down. Double back to his backline, Fielder's able to stay alive under the scrutiny of Tread and force a D-mech, but Tread out of mech is getting kills as well. A Bunny Blaster fans really eating today.
Haku's back here as well. Labda still in the mix, so Qadsiah not out of this one just yet.
99% though to 0. This will be a disengage from Team Falcons here. Qadsiah have to spend pretty heavily in order to get this. Qadsiah Rush committed to that fight, but hey, we're coming back on another Lapta overclock.
One thing I'm also looking here for Qadsiah is the switch to the Sim gives you obviously a little bit more offensive firepower than the Torb, but the Torb was really good with that turret of also aiding Landon and Haku in that back line. You saw right away in that first fight, Proper was able to get into the back line, land a pulse bomb, take one out right away. If you're going to play this Sim, you're going to need to figure out a way to keep these supports alive.
Yeah, I want to see the Valley from it, Matt. Otherwise, feels like Torb might be the better option, but Sound Barrier here is going to make it hard to see too many mistakes from Qadsiah in this fight. Very durables late beginning engagement, and Stalker quickly is bowled over by, you guessed it, Lapta again. Fielder gonna fall now, and this will be our Qadsiah with 2 consecutive fights, putting Falcons in a do-or-die spot for this second flashpoint.
But Falcons, they don't end up using their beat there. They actually, force them back with an overclock. Haku's forced the beat on the other side. So now Falcons can come back in a, obviously they have 99%. They just need one fight scenario. And they can use their beat into the Kitsune Rush. They can use their Kitsune Rush after. So Falcons still in a pretty good spot.
Here come the Falcons now. Checkmate wants to try and set up if he can. Kitsune Rush here from Lando, but a sound barrier for Team Falcons as they come forward. Harbin's forced to self-destruct here, and he gets taken down out of mech. No chance to climb back in now, and now Qadsiah have the advantage. Lapta leading from the front. This guy is dirty.
I mean, this is crazy stuff. Hey, this is what we saw, though, in EMEA. We were, like, shocked, with so many good hit scan players in EMEA. Like, that Lapta was, like, one of the best. Like, you can legitimately make the case, like, one of the best Sojourns in EMEA.
Yeah, from a region that features Quartz.
Right.
Shockwave.
Yeah.
Man.
Kai, I mean, yeah, just fantastic hit scan players there.
Back to the Han Vincent. Stalker also switching over to the Sombra here. Wholesale changes now for Falcons as they go to an echo-based composition. Already getting forced back by our Qadsiah. Lanta again, well, dead taxes, and this guy getting a first kill in these fights. Forced back a little bit now. The Kitsune Rush is deployed by the Falcons, but it feels like a bit of a feign. They don't really have the sticking power to follow up on that ultimate and turn it into a point flip.
Well, what do you think about the Falcons comp change? Like the Jose, like the, going now to Sombra Echo.
Well, they're trying to make it hard for Tread to bowl Hanbin over. Obviously, like this, the alpha damage that you can deploy there is a D.Va is very powerful, but Prob is able to get rid of Checkmate at the start of this fight. You're going to notice that Prob really needs to use the terrain and the Winston bubble pretty extensively here.
Double support ult here for Qadsiah. They're going to have an advantage here for a bit. Self-destruct will go off. You might be able to beat out of this if you can actually get that mech back. Oh, no, you end up losing both supports.
Promise that well here, finds yet another one, and Lapta was looking here only at eyes for the Winston. Unconcerned about the Echo that was already tearing his team apart. He was locked in on trying to get the mad scientist out of the game. I mean, to his detriment there.
If you could keep Tread up there, there's a world in which Qadsiah beats out of that. Kitsune rushes, you probably get the beat out on the other side. And I mean, who knows kind of what happens in a fight like that, where, yeah, now you go back. The Torb was really effective against the Winston early on. Sombra can obviously, like, hack the turret and take it offline for, a brief bit, but still, it's not, you would much rather see the Genji here, right?
Okay, we have a EMP available for Stalker now. Hack the turret first, take it out of the game with a quick virus application. And then look for Checkmate, who gets hammered in that front line. Even he, not enough to stop Team Falcons with a sound barrier, and there'll be an EMP committed in the backside of the fight just to ensure things are locked up nicely, but Lapta's here yet again. Another rail claims Stalker. He's still ready to fight. He has an overclock to work with as well, and you notice that Proper's trying to stay out of his line of sight by playing from behind the pillar, but he can't avoid this guy forever. In he comes, sticky bombs go off, and Proper falls to a disruptor shot. Lapta, though, had to commit so deeply to get that kill, and Harbin lays waste to the rest of them.
Yeah, I don't really love that fight for Qadsiah. I think, they end up obviously investing both support ultimates. They end up hanging around here towards the end. Lapta now going to go over and play Cassidy, potentially, is see if there's any more changes. No, he'll actually play the Cassidy. So we're going to see Cassidy, Torb. This is like a very, almost think back to like bunker type like setup, right? Very stationary. Doesn't want to play that aggressive.
But you can render Sombra unable to translocate away.
Yes.
With that hindrance grenade. Huge part of the kit and why it's so strong here. I've got to see the guy's stats. Lapta is just, I mean, he's good for 3 or 4 every fight. It's not right.
Goes back to the Sojourn. I mean, he was looking like the Cassidy there for a second, but now back to the Sojourn, and you're just dominating on it, so why not?
Still, Falcons do get that flashpoint there, Matt, critically.
Yep.
The switch over towards the Echo, composition, I think there's a lot of hate for the D.Va. Probably hard for Tread to be as active, to be as busy in this fight now.
I mean, he gets hacked, there's the focusing beam, right, and then, virus, like, there's a lot of burst damage potential that you can't really predict. It just kind of happens out of nowhere.
Okay, well, down, overload active for Checkmate. But once again, it's Lapta that opens up the fight. I think the idea is probably, Matt, to take some of the pressure off Hanbin that Tread otherwise would apply. But after that, you're still going to deal with an overloaded Torbjorn. I mean, Sojourn also, with the 150 power railgun charge, is going to work you down very quickly.
If Hanbin goes in onto the D.Va, right, and you have the focusing beam, the hack, and things go down, and you can keep Tread up, it's going to be hard for Hanbin to get out, and that's kind of what you saw in that previous fight. Wasn't able to jump out. I mean, what you see here, I mean, dude, he is locked in. if I'm Qadsiah, I'm like, and we win this map, I'm like, hey, get this next one fired up
man,
as soon as possible. We don't need a break. Let's just keep it rolling.
Man, sick rails. Not even an overclock there, by the way, for Labda. Just dealing it out. Obviously takes that secondary perk there that gives him a bit more mobility.
But like I was saying, if you can keep Tread alive through that initial jump in from that Winston and then some of the other damage and like the focusing beam, that's where the D.Va can start following up. And you saw Hanbin die in that previous fight because of it.
All right, sound barrier had to be committed there for Falcons. They have come up in a lot of their ultimates, Matt. That is the positive sign. If they ration them properly out of the next couple of fights, they'll be in good shape. First positive point here for Falcons is that they're in control and they've had a long fight. That's going to give them a good 20 to 25%, even before this stagger is done.
Yeah, you're going to keep Tread alive here for as long as possible.
Press F to pay your respects. Bye, Tread.
That's brutal. It's, you're going to get probably another 15% on the point out of that. Just staggering the D.Va out for that long, where this next fight is massive, man. I mean, you win this one for Qadsiah, you know, with all the ultimates that are probably expended on both sides, you probably are winning the map. Losing it, though, probably sends us to a final round.
I'm so glad we got to see that. This is that previous fight here where Labda was resplendent.
And that's also where they keep Tread alive, right? And Hanbin not able to make it out.
Oh yeah, into another fight here. This time, Labda not quite as successful. It's a duplicate of a D.Va for Proper. So very durable looking Team Falcons there. And Tread once again will be forced to hang around too late like the estranged uncle at the Christmas party. Staggered out for all eternity to get Team Falcons to 2-2. Is that really necessary, Gio?
It's really the stagger that buys them a lot of percentage for Falcons. It just basically means they need one more fight there to end up taking it, as I will say Qadsiah much more competitive here in Surabasa in map number 2 is Hack and Virus on the Landon, probably not enough to finish him off.
Maybe the Winston, though, might get you there. Landon desperately trying to scramble away from the Winston. He's able to switch step out, and once again, Proper dies to Labda. It's been the story of this game so far. Stalker's able to get out after finally getting rid of Landon. It took both him and Hanbin to bring the Kiriko down, and Labda gets hit with the virus. Forced away as Haku's turned into a Lucio pancake. Hanbin touches down a Stalker. Well, once he's got the center view, he does not give up the hunt.
You know, every time we watch Proper, he's just making a beeline for Labda. That time it is Stalker as well, as Primal Rage here from Hanbin. That's Tread going to be resetting off the side. This will be Falcons in control of the point first. I feel like Qadsiah needs a fight win in such a desperate way.
I like the perk take here for Hanbin that gives regeneration to those under the projector barrier of Winston.
Yeah.
Pretty handy for Proper to duck in and out of that, get some extra passive healing going. Sound barrier now for both sides, but Hanbin just ceases to exist. There's no other way to put it. Fielder gets a touch there from Labda, but Qadsiah know they've got to really just get over towards the point. They took a fight pretty close to their spawn. Now the cleanup and a cap happening simultaneously will get them on the board on this 5th and final flashpoint. The game is in their hands right now.
And Falcons doesn't have a lot, right? I mean, they don't have anything at this point. I mean, they'll end up building up towards that EMP rather quickly. But with how Lab has been playing in a neutral fight, you think he's going to get a pick, and he most certainly does there.
I mean, Falcons don't have a shield to work with. Hanbin obviously is not deploying the barrier unless he's committing to the fight. You've got to try and take space away from the Soju, but then there's Torb that gets in your face instantly, as is just evidenced in that moment by Proper falling to the Rivet Gun. And this will get Qadsiah into a healthy spot now. They're ahead.
Yeah, you're going to get up to, you know, north of 65% here on the point by the time the next fight ends up kicking off, but this next fight is massive. If you can force maybe Falcons end up using like a Kitsune Rush quite early and then disengage, gives yourself a better opportunity, but it looks like they're going to back up, allow them in.
Okay, self-destructive for Tread. Molten Core up for checkmate. This is probably answering the question of why they would disengage and play point. Here it comes though. Kitsune Rush opens up the fight for Falcons. And in goes Proper. Once again, thinking of the backline here, but he might have a juicy morsel in the form of Tread, who has to quickly boost on out of there. Labda was hacked and hit with the virus, and Qadsiah just burn on down. Falcons have got a decent climb, so I'm glad they're trying to ration some of these ultimates out a little bit, Matt.
But for Qadsiah, right, there's a lot of spots here where you're not going to get staggered out forever, so you can actually get a quick reset as opposed to that previous point. So they end up not investing that much there. Qadsiah actually ends up investing nothing. You come back, double support. I mean, you have all 5 ultimates here to win the game. I mean, this is the best opportunity you could give yourself.
This is the fight, folks. Hold on to your hats. Qadsiah trying to stay in this first
EMP,
2 series.
Though, could be nasty.
EMP comes in. Tread the only one affected by it. Molten Core's going to come down straight away. Labda into the overclock, but he has a Duke Digger in his face. It's just free health The Proper's been able to gain himself. He's knocked out of the mech in fairness, but will return to Echo form soon. Harkin is able to get rid of Stalker. EMP deployed, no value to get from it, and Qadsiah are fighting back into this game. Chio's off the map now. Checkmate returns to the point as Qadsiah will set up, and Falcons only have a couple players left to work with. Then there's nothing Proper can do against this. We have got ourselves a series.
And if Lobner shoots like that,
dude,
I mean, you could have an upset. I mean, dude, he is dominating right now.
I'm shooting, boys. I'm shooting.
He's like, bro, I am here. I mean, even Tread's looking at him like, bro, you were just dominating, man. As that is one where, look, it goes down to the final flashpoint, but almost every flashpoint now, Qadsiah was like in control, or like it goes. The ones that Falcons win obviously go down to the wire. Like the initial stuff from Qadsiah. Obviously, you're not going to have the opportunity to ban the Genji again, which will obviously hurt going forward, but they looked great.
But I think we saw the game plan that we discussed coming into this game in motion.
Yeah.
Force Falcons onto a dive comp. Bring your diva in, the classic EU diva look. Okay, maybe you can't account for Labda going absolutely hog wild on them through that game, but force them into a bit of an uncomfortable spot. How many hero switches are we seeing from Falcons to try to come up with the right answer?
I actually I wouldn't even chalk it up to like Hanbin playing the Winston there. They just looked really uncomfortable dealing with the Torb without the Genji in the mix, right? Like we saw them constantly. They were trying Echo. They tried Sombra. They were on Tracer. Like we saw Far. I mean, they're just playing just about everything. I think we even saw them play Sojourn early on as well. So like trying so many different things where that Torb is such a nuisance for like Tracer Sombra, where like the Genji's pretty effective against the Torb. And then obviously not having it Proper's fantastic on the hero, a huge swing.
There are some strategies that you're trying to use to counter a Torb composition that don't work when your enemy Sojourn is popping off. We saw like Proper came out in the Farah to start the game. He's like, all right, I can really control the space on this first point here, make use of the high ground, try and pepper these turrets down and make it possible here for Stalker to finish these kills. But very quickly we saw Hanbin get off the Winston, back to the diva. Says, no, this is where I need to be, especially against this Torb comp. Proper switching over to the Tracer and never being able to get into that backline, really. At no point felt like he was able to do his thing on that Tracer, and so we switch. We go over towards that Echo Sombra composition, which is very good at limiting Tread's effectiveness and creating a bit more space for Hanbin, or maybe taking the pressure of the Diva and the micro rockets off of him.
Yeah.
But you're still dealing with this. You don't have a Diva with a D-Matrix to eat this damage. You are at risk of losing picks in the neutral scenario, and Labda is just delivering.
And it also felt like that any time they were able to keep Tread alive after that initial kind of burst from Falcons, where Falcons uses some of their abilities, goes on in, tries to put pressure on the Diva. Anytime you could keep him alive through that, that was a fight win for Qadsiah. And man, I mean, I was talking a little bit about it before. I was trying to sell y'all on Qadsiah, how they make it happen. Now it's like, I mean, look, obviously Falcons, they have map pick and first ban. Going to be a massive advantage here, right? But still, to put yourself in this type of situation for Qadsiah, you have to feel great.
What if you chose a map that was more dive appropriate and banned the Diva, right? Try and play Winston Mirror.
Well,
or you ban the Torb. You ban the Torb, but again, Genji's not going to be banned here. So, do you care that much about going up against the Torb comp?
Do you ban like the Torb ban for Falcons feels silly, right? Like,
I mean, it kind of,
because then you open up support and tank for them on the opposite side. I mean, that would dictate much more of the composition you would play.
Crazy thought. If they're not going to play Soj,
do you ban Soj?
Just ban it.
Yeah.
Right? There are some. Oh, God, Echo here on any of these maps. Oh man.
What do you think? Do you Esperanza?
Oh no. Oh yeah. Okay.
I mean, look at the escort pool, right? Like, I mean, you're gonna play Root?
Not with no. I don't think you can really play the Echo there. That would be.
I don't think you're gonna play
some really long sight lines on those remaining maps.
Circuit feels like something you would have said Qadsiah would have potentially have gone to, right? So like, yeah, do you play one of the push, right? Nuke Queen Street we didn't have in NA and EMEA, so it will be Runasabi, so they go with the push. I actually think given the escort map pool, I think this is probably the right call.
Yes, we talked about it before, it's pretty fire friendly. I'm looking at these bands, I do think that you can, the thing is that Laptic can obviously play multiple hit scan picks, right? Ashe is a serviceable option if you don't have access to the Sojourn. Some players like Lethal are playing Ashe anyway, right? Just because of the pressure, the heal pressure you can put down with the Dynamites, and I don't think Ashe's perks are necessarily groundbreaking in terms of changing the way that she plays, but there's some players that look pretty good in that regard. It's a Diva ban. They did it. They went for
Okay.
so they might, again, is Runasapi, I don't feel like this is a particular Winston-friendly map.
Well, I mean, you could play just Maga, right? Like, if you wanted to play Maga here, this is a map in the past where when Hazard was in the meta, we saw some Hazard. Arisa sneaks in here on Runasapi time and time again. So, but Falcons banning the...
Fire Band's very good.
Yeah, I think the Fire Band's pretty good there for Qadsiah, right? That's a hero you probably were not going to play anyway. Because, well, I mean, your Pharah is just playing lights out on Sojourn, so why make a change?
Never gone back.
And for Falcons, right, I guess, like, what, you get rid of the Diva. This puts you in either, what, Maga, Winston, at least from what we've seen so far, that type of territory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, it's gotten a little bit spicy. I would say, like, were Falcons to be unleashed into the lower bracket, that would throw the entire thing into chaos. I mean, you just, you'd be even more scared of losing those first games here. But again, the Diva definitely was an issue for them. Like, Harbin tried to play it at one point, and they look at like what the comp ended up looking like for Falcons to try and limit the effectiveness of Tread. Like the fact that we're looking at a Sombra being picked up there in order to try and like harass the Diva. Also, we saw it used a little bit against the Torb Tyrants, hack them, virus them, and try and get through them as quickly as you possibly can. But yeah, I do think that you can play a Brawl here. You probably, if you want to play Brawl, Diva's annoying because she can actually make use of that high ground that's present on parts of Runasapi where the checkpoints are, right? There is that balcony that can be used quite effectively.
I mean, if you play Maga here, right, it's probably like a Maga, Sojourn, Genji potentially for Falcons.
Yep.
On the other side, it would probably be, instead of the Genji, you would play the Torb, right, in response.
I think we can, like, I'm going to throw us back to Control Center, the first round we saw. I think the Malgamira definitely favored Falcons. I think how they
with the Genji in the mix, yes.
I think how they played the Malga's life in the front line was really good. Obviously, Proper was looking unleashed. That's the kind of map, like Runasapi's the kind of map where you can do much the same thing.
Maga head-to-heads, like, if you were going to get, if you're Qadsiah, right, and you're like, hey, you get a Game 5 where it's going to be a Maga battle head-to-head, like, if you told them that before the series, they probably sign up for that. Like, they're probably like, yeah, we'd be totally fine with that being the way this series goes. Like, low chance you win it 2-0, but to get there to a final game in a Maga head-to-head, you probably take that.
I think a question a lot of people might be asking, hearing this discussion, is like, why do you not care so much about the Torb if you can play Genji? Like, why does it feel so much better than playing a Tracer against this?
It just feels like the Genji can just, like, you can get rid of that turret so fast, and he's just so much more devastating on the back line, especially when, the Maga, like, let's say you're playing Maga with it, like, the Stomp comes in, the Genji dash, you can just burst down some of these targets, like, so fast. And then, look, Blade is really effective, right? When you can use that Blade, get out a sound barrier, right? Even if you don't really get a kill with it, just being able to force something out, much better, obviously, than like a Pulse Bomb in that type of scenario.
Just got to look there, of course, at some of those Falcons players. I mean, so many world champions.
Do you think they expected this series to be close? If you were to, like, give them some... They would obviously, if we interviewed them, tell us, yeah, this is going to be competitive. But, like, if you gave them some true serum, like, would they tell you?
There's actually a great storyline behind this game. Do you guys remember back, it was like 2022, 23, I'm going to hope Johnny can confirm this for me, the game where Jungkook hits a shatter on Havana as the Outlaws beat the Shock, right? Was that 22? 23? That was like, okay, 21. Oh, buddy, okay, I'm old. That was like the first time that the Junkbuck and 9K duo like split up and had to play against each other. And that was when Junkbuck actually won the first of those like student versus master coach matchups. And 9K goes, he goes on record and says, I'm pretty scared to go up against a Junkbuck team first because there's always some really good strategies that we are generally afraid of, that we really respect. There's these two coaches go way back, man. Like, they've been working together for a long time. Actually, it was the Krusty and Junkbuck sort of duo. Excuse me, back on the Shock. But obviously, still 9K's like, I respect this guy a lot. So, I can't see not only with incredible, I think, players that have kind of come out of nowhere, many of them. The amount of talent coming out of Saudi Arabia is pretty crazy. Like,
for Overwatch, it's insane. Yeah. I mean, it feels like every year we have new players out of Saudi that just come through. And there's one thing to like do it in EMEA, right? But then you see it at Overwatch World Cup. You see it like a spread really across of EMEA. Like, there's so many talented players.
I'm so glad you brought that up because, that World Cup was pretty wild. Obviously, seeing China and Saudi Arabia in that grand final. That much of that Chinese, in fact, the entirety of that Chinese World Cup team is here in Hangzhou. We'll say obviously slightly different teams.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I think far away might have been on that, the Chinese team is on CC here, but it's going to be great to see them playing. And our next matchup, of course, we've got Virtus.pro versus once again, which is going to be great.
The crowd there is going to be insane for that one.
It is just incredible to see I would say our 4 regions, as we've considered them in the past, finally brought back together. And even after a year break, it looks like once again haven't really skipped a beat. So very excited to see them come out on what looks like a bit of a Winston meta. At least it's one that allows for that, right? So yeah, we're going to be treated to quite a specialty over the course of these next few days.
Dude, this match being a potential upset in the first round would be crazy. Like, would reset everybody's expectations of the tournament, the bracket, how things go. You start to look at other matches a little bit differently, right?
Look at the whole lower bracket differently.
And I think it was really hard, like the bracket set with where the Chinese teams are placed in and like how you kind of value them potentially before we even saw them play, right? And then now you're kind of like, oh, well, you know, how does VP match up against like,
what about like CC and Nightmare?
Yeah,
that's a real wild card, right? A kind of matchup where Nightmare, and don't forget, are the #1 seed from North America, right? So in theory, have that more favorable starting matchup based on seeding, but you just never really know. And we're talking about, by the way, like a Virtus.pro that lost to a T1 at Soup Cup, which isn't even here. They're not even here. They're not even a top team out of Korea, right? They're like 3rd. Mate, 4th. I mean, Zeta Division's there as well, right? The depth there, I think we're seeing in that region is crazy. But here we go. Runasapi had a cider map in his first of 2s on deck.
This is fairly similar to what we saw in Control Center, but because the Juno is banned early on, right? We saw like Lucio in play, so you're not going to play the Brig with it, but now you see Brig in the mix.
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest difference, obviously, is Proper going to pilot that Genji, where on the other side, Checkmate going to be playing that Torb. If they can neutralize Proper on this Genji, OWCS could take this.
I mean, they couldn't do it in the first map of the series, could they?
But there was no Brig. They were playing Lucio, right? So Brig actually adds a little bit more of a defensive mechanism into it.
And hopefully we can talk a bit about our perks. There we go. So takes Checkmate out early. Lambda, though, is there. Look at him on this off angle, and no one's really attending to him right now. That feels like a dangerous move to make. The Torpedoes end up claiming Haku. Lambda, looking for a fight. Somebody, please, give me blood. Anybody. Not to be. There's Tread now falling in that front line. There's not much left for Qadsiah to already pick up here.
It seems like they're just really strong here. Falcons at playing this style of play as they will get the bot moving into OWCS territory. OWCS gets on it for just a second there, so they get 3 meters on the board. But Falcons early on, it's a pick from Stalker. Getting Checkmate, obviously pretty massive. We talk about how impactful that Torb is in this composition and the style that they would like to play it. So losing him early on, that's things for OWCS.
Absolutely. Again, some of these big perks, right? We talked, I think, a little bit about sort of the whiplash knockback to slam into the wall to get the extra damage. It's always fun to see.
It's a fast blade.
Yeah, I mean, there's one fight Proper has built that up. So we'll see, if the Brig really makes a big difference now as the blade comes on in. Sharp and keen, as Proper always is. Just inanimate objects falling to the blade so far, but Checkmate's turret is out of the way. At least there it is, eventually. Qadsiah buckle. Proper's able to get into the backline well and truly and move both healers and leave Tread stranded. Wilson, he screams as he finally capitulates.
Falcons, they're going to get close to taking checkpoint here as there's been no slowdown. That was the orbital ray there used for OWCS. It is a rally invested there for Falcons, so don't have that big Brig ult here for all of the ultimates coming in for OWCS, but you're going to be able to fight with your orbital ray and cage fight. Like, that's a pretty nasty combo in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Tread here in that front line now as the orbital ray comes down. He wants to try and get clear of it. Of course, the damage boost can be a bit of a problem, but Haku is not allowed to escape. Catchfight for Tread is made use of, but again, you can break through it pretty quickly. As the Molten Core is a deterrent for Falcons, but they do happily take that close fight, and it's another comfortable win. Checkpoint gained, and they're well and truly off and running.
It's like, have we ever given a player of the match to like a player on an individual hero? Like, just Proper on Genji is the player of the match. Yeah.
Don't worry about
Only when he was playing Genji. That's the player of the match. As right now, Falcons pushing deep into OWCS territory. They're going to go play the Sim. So we'll see now if this makes any bit of a difference. But it seems like Falcons totally fine backing up, conceding some space here to Qadsiah, and then taking the fight on their terms. Probably building up another blade.
This is the kind of map where you can set up defensive turrets when you're playing in these sort of narrow straightaways and those little corners. You can give your backline a little bit more. It might be a deterrent for Proper, as he'll obviously get snarled up in those, and it's an issue for him to try and dive in. First of all, get rid of the TP. Remove that mobility now away from Qadsiah. It's time to go. Another blade! God, easy come, easy go, I guess, and Proper just whips it out once more. Easily dealing with Haku first. Lapta, who would have been scary in any other team fight, not in this one.
Yeah, you just play around that corner for Falcons. Proper at that point was like 86% to a blade, so you let him farm that up. And then Qadsiah kind of forced to play offensive, right? They can't just kind of play that neutral around that corner. The clock would just end up rolling down. So they have to be the team that is the aggressor, and you're just going right into a blade. I mean, that's unlucky there. Qadsiah kind of falling apart here towards the end.
Big rally, there it is. Morale boost taken from Fielder, so Inspire lasts for 3 seconds longer when activated by Whip Shot, which is amazing when your flankers can dip in, get the Inspire proc, and then have extra healing for extra time as they dive into a backline.
Qadsiah looked pretty competitive in the first map. Obviously take map 2, but Falcons asserting their dominance here towards the end. Not the way that Qadsiah would have liked to see this one potentially end, as it'll be Stalker end up using the overclock.
Can you guys tell that Matt is gearing up for a match finish here?
We are 124 meters to 3. And look, if you know anything,
back a little and stretch.
You know anything about push, you're gonna need what, 6 fights, 7 fights to go the opposite way. We've seen it.
Statistically, though, one of the most unlikely outcomes that you can imagine here on this kind of map. Harpy knows caught inside the cage fight. Now Checkmate also going to throw a wall up here, so this is Qadsiah. Okay, they get a favorable fight, and to their credit, they don't spin the rally or overclock in doing so. So that's 1 out of 6. We'll keep track as we go.
Here's the hardest part about push, is that Falcons obviously going to have the close spawn still, so they're going to get another fight probably around mid-map, per se. Maybe even a little bit closer if they get like quite aggressive around the corner here, kind of going up the slope. Then you're going to get another fight before checkpoint. Then you're going to get a slowdown with checkpoint. Then you're going to get another fight, right? So it's like, and you only have so much time, right? You're going to need to be perfect for Qadsiah.
Maybe they can be. Okay. That's scary. Trying to break some ankles, but Stalker's ready for him. Railgun straight to the dome. Unnecessary given how low Lapta was, but Stalker does it in style. Probably he will harass, holding onto a blade, hoping to garner some degree of attention, but won't be looking to commit yet.
And we're not even back with the bot towards mid-map, right?
Blade's going. Please, please, why? Okay, I've been a little bit late to the party there. Still, Fielder's going to try and dive on in here and see if they can get rid of Trev, but he's too healthy. There's too much healing for him. Haku, though, can't say the same for them. Taken out straight away here by Stalker, and Fielder is going to commit the rally. So without Proper, they offer him up as bait to look to try and start a good fight, but that Sim is motoring. Checkmate, though, can't quite topple the Titan that is Hanbin, but Lapta's there to help. They reach up and deal with him, but time is ticking down. Qadsiah at least, though, have some positive momentum, but Proper's back in the fighting. Hope to find more than just the 1 kill. They have to be satisfied. And there's Lapta putting them to the bed yet again.
So if you're Qadsiah, you're like, okay, we need to get checkpoint with about like 2 minutes on the clock, minute 45, right? That gives you like a puncher's chance in order to win it, but I like what Falcons is doing. They just constantly flood out, taking the fights here mid-map. There's no meterage gained by Qadsiah throughout all of this, even with some winning fight.
Okay, slide away there from Lapta was good. He's able to be a part of this fight still, but Stalker hunts him down. Now, on the enemy side of the wall, Qadsiah don't really have a safe place to be. They try and push ahead of it now, and Landon knows he's in Stalker's sights and he's trying to avoid it. Fielder taken down early. It's going to be an orbital rain now for Qadsiah committed as Trent combines it with the cage fight. Proper can only deflect for so long before he's got to give up the ghost, and still, Chio still looking to fight around this. Landon got brought down. Falcons just trying to turn this in the muddiest game possible and bleed the clock.
You just turn into a little bit of a mess there towards mid-map, right? At this point, Qadsiah has to invest into every single scenario, right? With the clock just kind of bleeding down. And Falcons, look, they just keep throwing bodies at it, right? Let's get back. Let's get another fight, another fight, another fight. Force them to consistently fight here. And only, I mean, you gain out of all of this, right? It's been about 2 minutes. You gained a little bit more than 3 meters.
Note the 2 hearts per keep a Hanbin, so we'll gain regeneration when he's on an objective, which is the bot in this map. Trying to make use of that now. Of course, this trend is going to fall first. Not a great sight at all for Qadsiah. The rest of them, unfortunately, like dominoes, must follow suit. Stalker didn't even need a rail to claim that fight, and Lapta went for the ultimate. Unfortunately, just not a fight where Qadsiah's Sojourn can make the difference.
And it's a huge ask for Qadsiah. Like, this is why it's so important not to fall behind in this type of fashion in push, because you're asking them to be perfect against such a difficult opponent. This will be a rally here from Fielder as they want to get a grab. They push right on in. This will be a blade to follow things up here as well.
Such a scary combination, the rally with Amalga diving on in, and Qadsiah, I think, finally have been silenced in this first game of our Champions Clash. They're going to be shut in Sword as the bot looks to try and get home. Stalker has a round to make use of it now as Trent wants to step up and make a stop happen. Has to play though from behind the barrier, and there's Lapter around the Widow making a try and bail his team out. A second kill, surely not more than that, as Proper goes looking for the Widow. Lapter has had his time in the sun, he's had his fun, and Proper is here to put this game to bed. But Qadsiah refused to bow here at the final hurdle. Hanmin charges out to try and regain control of the bot. With only a minute left, Qadsiah have so much map to cover.
Anytime Hanmin can stay alive here on that bot would have just been time delaying, as now Checkmate will go over to a Genji, so a flat-out mirror matchup. It'll be Hanmin getting that close spawn, so you're going to get another fight here towards that mid-map.
50 seconds to play. Orbit Array at the disposal of Landon here, and Team Falcons don't have any big ultimates to rely on. Let's see if Qadsiah can at least get a cheap fight win now and stay on the bot in overtime. It's going to be Checkmate looking to come forward now. Has got to respect the brig, but elsewhere Stalker's found a ultless kill onto Landon. The lion's share of the healing now unavailable for Qadsiah, and Haku is forced to commit the rally. No choice but to try and keep his team in the game rather. But Stalker is just popping them. Beautiful stuff. Knows he doesn't need fully charged rails to finish them off. And now 17 seconds left. It's the final stand in this upper bracket for Qadsiah.
And that's a fight win there for Falcons through the orbital rate and rally on the opposite side. That is nasty work here. Is under 5 seconds. It is right up to the spawn door.
There's no way Trev was going to survive that. Checkmate stuck in the doorway trying to make use of this blade, but the cage fight really limits his coverage. And Stalker's eventually going to bring him down. Your current world champions, though not without a rocky start, will advance in this upper bracket.
It's not easy there for Team Falcons, but in the end, they take care of business. Is when they're on that Malga with that Genji in the mix, it looks almost impossible to beat.
Coach Sparkle there, getting excited, of course, one of the most recent additions for this team. Even subbed in for them at a recent tournament for Stalker. Didn't go so well, don't ask about the details, but great to see him there, and he's got to be feeling good at least about getting to the first 2 threes now in this upper bracket for this team.
And I think for Qadsiah, I mean, it's obviously a loss, but you have to feel pretty good about how you played against Falcons. I think obviously just the proper Genji and the amount of pressure he's applying to you is kind of where your team crumbled. But how many other Genjis are you going to play like proper throughout the tournament, right? I mean, not really.
Not quite at that level.
Not at that level. So,
my boy's error though.
But you still feel pretty good maybe for Qadsiah in that lower bracket, but Falcons look sick.
We saw them at their strongest and potentially their weakest here in this series, but your current world champions, Team Falcons, still make a strong statement at the start of the Champions Clash. Let's head to the desk here and break down our very first match of the weekend.
Well, what a matchup to kick things off. Not quite the 2-0 that we thought it was going to be, Jake. Qadsiah had some bite back to them.
Yeah, you know, I think that this is still a good start for them. As much as it's the loss, like, let's be honest, beating Falcons would have been a shocking result, hugely impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Getting a map win, though, it puts wins in their sails. It shows that there's a lot of teams in this tournament who won't be able to take a map off Falcons. So I think Qadsiah down to the lower bracket. They're down but not out. That being said, I mean, this 5K from Proper to open the match, talk about a statement for Falcons. That's the most Proper Falcons moment of all time. It's like, yeah, okay, first fight of the tournament, and I just eat you all up for breakfast.
Yeah, and then we went over to Suravasa. I mean, loved that. What a performance. I mean, if you can do it against Falcons, then you've essentially proven that you're able to deliver amazing Sojourn performances against any team in the entire world. And so this makes the tournament a lot more interesting now, because you're thinking, Qadsiah, with Sojourn performances like that from Labda, they could essentially take on any team in the world. Now, they did lose 2 maps, you know, playing the Mauga composition against Falcons. You shouldn't feel too bad about that, because this is essentially, you know, the best team in the world on their best composition, the one they play. Proper MVP, much deserved. Matt talked about the Genji performances really shown in this series. Falcons, they dropped the map though, but Proper looked fantastic on the Genji.
Yeah, Proper always such a threat. You know, on pretty much anything he plays, the team often just like flexes completely around where he can have the most impact. And well, there's a good reason for that. And I think the Genji is probably the most explosive hero to see it on because, you know, talk about feast or famine. Proper very consistently eating well in these big fights. You know, with the pressure on him, all the resources given over to him, and it's for good reason. He delivers time after time. Like you said, that map loss. Definitely not the ideal here, but Falcons, these guys are elite. They played so many tournaments so many times. They're just like looking ahead to the next match already.
Yep.
Oh, they definitely are. They definitely are. I think it's pretty insane, though. We do have to give Qadsiah still the credit that's due for being able to even take down Surabasa up again.